In the beginning. Well, I don't know if there's any points for epic openers, but I thought I'd give it a shot. My name's David Burke, and this is a digital storyboard on a project that I've been working on for some time called the digital codex planning process. So what I'd like to do today is tell you a little bit about how it began, how it originated, because it's a story I think worth telling. If there's any one thing I've learned, it's this: pedagogy can be messy. The idea of directing oneself in learning was fascinating to me, and I really got into the process, really committed, immersed myself into my research. But frankly, I did not know what I was doing, and it led to a ton of inefficiencies, and really it's what drove me to go back to graduate school, because I thought and committed to the idea that getting into an academic program would give me the rigor and the structure that I would need to finish the research that I had begun. So far, it's going okay, but that was no guarantee that any of my research would work. So this is really the end of the story right here. This is the assignment that we started the project with. The learning target is that students will create an original work here at a digital story production. So I'll admit that it's a little bit meta, but what you'll see here is a learning grid that has a variety of activities that go through an entire stage of learning and the model. Here we use Bloom's. The verbs are very carefully chosen to reflect a depth of knowledge in each stage. And you can see that it has been designed to reflect universal design areas of engagement, representation, and action and expression. So this is sort of how the story ends, empowering them to choose the way they want to learn and choose the way they want to express knowledge. And then finally, integrate assessment so that it could be a sustainable process for the student. And really, the search for sustainability is a key part of this story. Now, this story is beginning to look a little bit too PowerPointy, so let's get into something that might have a little more fun. From left to right, this is Daniel, Michael, and Mary. These are my family, and Daniel and Michael, a little bit older now, they're in college, but even when they were younger than this, they were Cub Scouts, and I was a Cub Scout assistant to the assistant den leader, and we had a lot of fun, and Scouts is great. But one thing that I wasn't crazy about with Scouting was the fundraising requirements. Every year, buy 2 boxes of chocolate at $30 a box times 2 kids for 4 years. It added up, and it made for one sad dad. So I put my mind to, what can we do that's better? There's got to be a better solution than selling chocolate every year. So, I started thinking, well, what could we sell? What could we do differently? And the idea was to create a resource that would be a perpetual source of income, some sort of sustainable fundraising process that wouldn't require selling anything over the course of a year. So what this really did echo was some of the promises of direct sales strategies, or multi-level marketing, or network marketing. It goes by many names, but the idea, and shown here in a binary model where you tell 2 friends and they tell 2 friends and so on, this model is an interesting one. It clearly explains how the idea that you're getting people involved, and if you're a successful organizer, you're going to have the benefits of that residual income. And the thinking was, instead of a person being in that position, it could be an organization like the Scouts. So what did I do about it? Well, I founded a 501c3 called Sustainable Fundraising. It was listed as a research organization, and we studied economics, really focusing on the business practices and all of the requirements and nuances of the direct sales industry. There were some interesting parts to this, and it really it drives the beginning of the story. And we ended up, instead of going through as a nonprofit, we incorporated as a business. So between the not-for-profit and the business entity, you can see that my pedagogy really took me to the limits of what was possible and real-world, authentic scholar practitioner work. At the end of the day, I was a physical educator by trade, and I particularly enjoyed working on a class called PE Leaders, where we would take role model students and then train them up even further. And then in their eighth grade year, they would have an opportunity to demonstrate positive leadership and build relationships with other students. So the idea of PE leadership was an important tenet in my professional career and something that I wanted to bring forward into this research. Now, I used a learning model called the TPSR, Teaching Personal and Social Responsibility. So Hellison's model has 5 levels of achievement. You start with basic respect in the classroom and in the gym. Then you work on the effort and cooperation, self-direction, and then we really started to get into some leadership areas here about helping others. And then level 5, of course, the highest level in the model is transfer, where you take what you learned in the gym and you bring it out to the real world. I liked Hellison's model, but I thought there could be more. I would propose that there is a 6th level where, while in transfer, you collaborate with others in transfer to create organizations and assets that would sustain beyond the one's own participation in that organization. So this kind of development level of learning was theoretical, but actually achieved in practice, because our 501c3 had student volunteers, and we were all taking what we learned, because a lot of them were in that leadership program. We're taking what we learned in our basic leadership class, we're putting it out into the community. We hosted a 5K and some after-school events that were fundraisers, and we made money, and it looked like it could work. So we had some decent data on the front end of this. I also thought there was another level, and that would be level 7, where if you're good enough at what you do as a group, that other people would do it too. So that idea of replication might sound familiar, in that idea of sustainable, replicable, multi-level networking. So the idea that there could be a model that might be replicable, it had enough of truth to me that I really wanted to pursue it even further. So what did I do? I went to Utah, where they had a conference for the Direct Sales Association of America. Here's some footage of the event, and it's nice. We had a beautiful hotel. Salt Lake City is a wonderful place. And we learned quite a bit about the economics and practices of the industry. But I needed to do a little bit more. And after I visited the Mormon Tabernacle Choir there, I rented a car and headed west. Went past the Great Salt Lake, which was my first time out there. And, I'm out in this big sky country, and it's just me and space. And I'm thinking about all this, these unachievable ideas of sustainable fundraising and creating something out of nothing, and really working in the theoretical. And I saw a street with a salt mine on it. I pull over. It's called Skull Valley Road. So I couldn't help myself. I pulled over, and I'm, taking pictures as I go along. And it's a beautiful desert. It's fantastic. It's surrounded by 2 ranges of mountains, and there's some cows, and there's all kinds of wildlife, actually. And I enjoyed the time and space, but I'm in the middle of the desert, and I see this sign here, and I pull over, and it turns out that this is a national park. And right there in front of me, right in the middle of the desert, is a freshwater spring. And I'm stunned by this. It's surreal to me that I would be in the middle of nowhere, looking for sustainability, looking for some sort of self-generating asset, and out of nowhere, I found a freshwater spring.